So, Michael, people who know movie music better than I say there's at least over 24 composers who've worked on Star Trek series and movies and things, including Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner and Leonard Rosenman.
The first film was much more of a problem for me than this one was. The first one, in trying to, I grew up, unlike Bryan, I watched the old series. I loved the old series, and it was, I had the action figures. I have the Enterprise bridge play set. All that, when you spin the thing. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
He says has, as if it's past tense.
I still have it, actually. I actually do. They're all in my office, along with my Planet of the Apes toys. So coming to it, I had all of this baggage of everything I grew up with, everything I loved. I listened to all those scores growing up, James Horner's music, Jerry Goldsmith's, Alexander Kerridge, all of those guys are heroes to me, and I love that stuff. So I kept writing, in the beginning, okay, what's going to be our theme? What's going to be our theme? And I was writing all this music that sounded like space music, and none of it fit what we were doing. But I kept trying to write space music. It's got to be this style of thing, because this is what you do with Star Trek. We would always listen to it, and never, it just wasn't working. Do you remember this? And I must have been about 25 versions of this thing, and finally, I was having a conversation. I was really sort of like depressed about it, and I was talking to Damon Lindelof, and he said, well, how about this? Look at it this way. He goes, forget the fact that we're making a movie about space, forget that the Enterprise, forget Kirk and Spock. Let's just do a movie about two guys who meet and become friends. Write that theme, right? And I was like, oh, that's actually really smart. And Damon was the one who said, no. He smacked me, like those old 40s movies where the detective grabs the woman and smacks the girl back and forth. That's what he did to me. And then I wrote this next theme, and that's the one that JJ was like, that's our theme. That's the one that belongs. So when I came to this movie, I already felt like I had built a home, and it was just about then adding an addition onto the home and coming up with new ideas and new themes, and taking the old theme that I had done and twisting it in new ways. And it was more about just, I could have fun with it at this point and create new ideas, already knowing that the house was built.
The last film was interesting because everybody was kind of doing it for the first time, and it was a little bit like, God, I hope the Star Trek fans aren't going to kill us. I hope, Chris was like, I'm going to be walking around wearing spandex, and like, is that going to work out? And there was a lot of like, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We hoped it would work. And we were fortunate to have a good reaction on the last film. So doing this one, it was a little bit less, I wonder if this is going to work, and we were able to really focus on expanding the universe and not having to reset it in the same way we did on the last film. And there was a general kind of joy throughout the whole thing. Plus, which is a weird thing, which is JJ's only condition to directing this film was to direct it in Los Angeles.
And where did you record?
Here in LA.
Fantastic.
Always,
That's equally rare.
As much as I can do, I've been one of the few people in town that's been so fortunate that every single thing I've done so far has been recorded here. If I had my way, I would do it like that forever. I love it. I love the musicians here. They're the best in the world. I will go down to the set. I love visiting the set. I love being on set and watching JJ work. What I love about JJ is that he loves practical effects. If you can do an in-camera effect, he wants to try it. He loves that. That fascinates him. We're all huge fans of like old films and the way they used to do things, and how would they accomplish these things just when they didn't have computers. So, in that shot where they're running down the hallway, where Scotty and Kirk are running down the hallway and the whole thing is spinning, normally you would put that thing on a giant gimbal and twist the whole set and deal with that. Well, JJ was like, well, why don't we just turn the camera and put them on a wire so that they're kind of running sideways and it's holding them, and we're just turning the camera. And it worked beautifully. I mean, it looked amazing. And I remember just thinking, that is the most awesome thing I would have ever seen, because I feel like it took me right back to being 12 years old, making Super 8 movies, going, and that's the kind of stuff you had to do. I couldn't build a giant set that would do, so you turn the camera. It's as simple as that. It's little things like that, and if he had to do that digitally or visual effects, it would have cost a fortune.
I had to make sure it was a film that really appealed to, I would often reference my mother, and to make sure that she understood what was going on. When we did Alias together. That's where Michael and I started working together. And I have a very wonderful, stereotypical Jewish mother who would watch religiously all of our Alias episodes, and I would know if it was a good episode or a bad episode because if it was good, she would say, she'd leave a message and it's like, honey, tonight's episode was so great. And she'd start talking about Sidney Bristow and she'd talk about the episode. Or I would get, honey, tonight's episode was so cool, with no description, and which meant she didn't understand what was going on. And so while we're making these films, you want to make sure that everybody understands it and it's not overly Star Trek heavy, so that I wouldn't be able to enjoy it.